Katie, so there you were at the pinnacle of your profession. Anybody in TV news journalism would love to be on TV doing the weather in Philadelphia. There you were for many years doing that, and one day you just went away. What happened?
Mm-hmm. I had spent a lot of years doing something that I was good at, but it wasn't bringing me at my inner core the truest happiness for myself. And you're right. I think a lot of people look at what I did and they may have thought that it looks glamorous or that it must have been just such an awesome opportunity. And it absolutely was. But for me and what I eventually came to realize actually made me tick as a person, it wasn't where I belonged in the grand scheme. So I think it's possible to be really good at something and do it effectively and successfully, but it can still make you unhappy.
How long did this decision play in your mind that you were going to leave TV?
A really long time, actually. I spent a couple of years sort of strategizing and planning and thinking and ruminating over what I wanted to do with myself after I left because, it's really hard from the practical sense to just up and leave. Yeah, I have 2 children, I have mouths to feed, I have a mortgage to pay just like anybody else. And, from the practical side of things, it was a terrifying decision because it meant that I would be giving up so much. I gave up a 401k and a regular paycheck and all of these things. And that it really, really scared me. How was I going to get by? And, it's one thing to take that leap from, I guess, sort of a selfish standpoint and do what really does make you happy. But how are you going to pay the bills? How are you going to be able to get by day to day? Those are really tough questions to answer. So I spent a long time thinking about that and planning and just doing a lot of math and figuring out from the financial standpoint how I could pull it off. And I would say it was about 14 months in total from the point that I started to really seriously think about what I was going to do and how I'd get to that point. So it was a long journey for sure.
Your book is called My Happy Place: How I DIY'd My Own Bliss. Now, when you were considering leaving the TV, was your idea to write this book, or how did they mesh together?
It's interesting. It happened very organically how I came to talk about this particular subject matter because I had known for a while that I wanted to write a book. A friend of mine kind of put the bug in my ear. He said a couple of years ago, right before I had my girls, it was in 2015, I got shamed for appearing pregnant on television.
Amazing.
And I was body shamed severely for that and got a lot of attention for my response to it. And my friend was like, you should really write a book about that. He was all about leverage this and capitalize on the success. And I thought, I think I might do that. But then all of these changes start to just organically fall into place. And I realized that I had a lot more to say when it came to this particular subject matter.
Right.
And I would have liked to think back then, and I think it's come true, that it was a message that people could relate to and that would be able to help them. So that's kind of how it happened. I began writing the book, though, while I was still on TV. I was writing it. I think I started it maybe the spring before I left. So I think it might have been about 5 or 6 months into the process by the time I actually called it a career in TV.
How do you explain your book to people, what it's about?
So it really is about the personal story that of my journey from realizing that you're kind of stuck in a situation and what do you do to change it? And for me, I was stuck in a career that looked amazing, that people thought I should want, but that at my core, I knew I didn't. And I felt really guilty that I didn't want it at first. But what I came to realize was that this is something that maybe the details are different, but that on so many other levels, this is such a relatable story. People either feel stuck in a career or they feel stuck in a situation, in a relationship, whatever it might be, and they just want to figure out a way to feel happier. And a lot of times that comes with some really hard changes. So the story in a nutshell is about my journey. But also it became this how-to hybrid. It's like a memoir and a how-to book all in one about how to find your own happiness and settle into the existence that's going to make you the most joyful version of yourself.
I'm a big believer in telling people that if you're going through something tough, one of the best things that you can find out is that you're not the only one going through this. Were there times when you were going through your personal struggles that you thought, wow, I can't believe that I'm going through this. I'm probably the only one that's ever experienced that.
100%. Absolutely. Even as I put this book out to the world, one of the most terrifying things about the book journey was finally releasing it and letting people read it. The very first person that read it cover to cover was my editor. And even putting it in her hands, I was terrified just because it was really vulnerable. This is the most vulnerable thing that I've ever done. I've never been dishonest with anybody in the public sector. I've always told the truth about myself on social media and whatnot, but I think you tend to hide certain things and only put out the positive stuff, which I think makes a lot of sense. But putting this out to the world it really did. I felt very, not just vulnerable, but alone. And then as I gave the book out to, it was close to 200 people that were on my book launch team, and they got advanced copies, had a chance to read it something like 6 weeks ahead of time before the book was released to the rest of the world. I realized among that small group of people how relatable my story actually is. And I cannot tell you how gratifying that was, because it's like this weight gets lifted just putting the thing out to the world in the first place, but then to realize that there are other people that have gone through it and they totally get it, and you can become this support group for each other. It was so amazing on that level.
So I guess, because of COVID, of course, you haven't been able to have a lot of interactions. So a lot of people have been reaching out through you, I assume, through social media and such.
Yeah, definitely. What's been nice is that I've been able at least to manage a couple of book signings since it was released back in the summer. Those have all been mask to mask, though, but it's been really nice to sit mask to mask with people and get to actually talk to people. Again, gratifying is like the word I keep reaching for, because it was really nice to hear people's stories and what they took from the book and how they were able to apply it. And those interactions have meant an awful lot to me.
Kind of circling back here, you mentioned the body shaming when you were pregnant, but I'm sure as a TV personality, some social media people, I mean, some of the reactions from people have to just be unrelenting and unbelievable.
It really is. That's a good way to put it. Unrelenting. It just doesn't stop. I mean, even now that I'm not on TV, I still get it. And who knows where it comes from?
Because people think they can say anything. They can say anything, and it won't hurt whoever they're targeting.
Yeah, either that it won't hurt them, or that they won't see it, or that whatever. I don't know what goes through people's minds, but some of the stuff that people have said to me and other women and men, for that matter, that I know, it just blows your mind. Like, where's this coming from? It's so much animosity over nothing, you know? And the reason that I finally put my foot down with body shaming for being pregnant was the fact that I'm going through a change here that I literally have no control over. I have absolutely no way to control the size that my belly gets. I had 2 of them at once in my belly. So you're going to get bigger when there's more than one in there.
It's life. That's what happens. Yeah.
That's the way it works. And being on television or in the public eye at all, I think there's sort of this understanding that image is important and that people are going to have an opinion about it. And for the most part, I used to just try to brush it off or ignore it, or in some way, shape, or form, just not react to it if at all possible. But this one really, really rubbed me the wrong way, because it was something that was a miracle happening, that B, I had 2, and therefore it was already going to be a high risk pregnancy. And so I had to take extra care and be very mindful of how I took care of myself and them to make sure that they had the healthiest start possible. In the end, they ended up coming prematurely anyway. So on many, many levels, there were a lot of layers to why that really bothered me. And I finally felt like I had to put my foot down and say something.
Mm-hmm. So you've kind of seen the best and worst of social media. That was the worst, and of course, the best of the people reaching out because of your book. So that's very very interesting.
It really is. Yeah, it really is one of those love-hate relationships. I find that it's necessary from a professional standpoint, but it's like the bane of your existence some days when, it still can really hurt your feelings, even just one, even though you shouldn't let it bother you,
right.
and that the overwhelming response from people is usually very positive. That one stinker on the internet can totally ruin your day. And I am, by my very nature, being a Cancer crab, a very sensitive person. So a lot of times it would just take that one person to just mess with my day. And that would be so frustrating. And you try to turn that off in your head, but it can be really difficult. It's a tough thing to get through.
So, Katie, how can people get your book?
So there are lots of places to find it. My website is the easiest place to find all of the different options at katiefehlinger.com, but you can always go to Amazon. It's on Barnes & Noble. If you want the paperback version, those are the two places to get it. And then I have e-versions available as well on both of those, Kobo, Google Play, Apple Books. So there's lots of ways to get it.
And you're also doing a lot of other things besides talking about the book. You have your own YouTube channel, and you're doing a lot of videos. Tell us about those.
Yeah, so I'm stoking a lot of other fires right now. I do some side work as a freelance host and executive producer for an association that's based in Washington, D.C., doing some work with them. It's all video production work. And then I'm also, like you said, I've got a YouTube channel. I just started a second YouTube channel. I have one that's all about DIY projects, and the other that I just began is all about video production and helping beginners and burgeoning video content creators create their own content in an easy to understand way. And beyond that, I am also working on developing an online course in the very same subject matter. So if anybody's got a small business or they want to start their own YouTube channel, but they're not exactly sure how to start that, I will have this all-inclusive masterclass available very soon that will show you from point A to Z how you can start creating quality videos quickly.
And so let me ask you this question. The COVID, the pandemic, what has that done to your life?
I think literally everybody's got a COVID story, right? For me, COVID turned out to be a time of reflection for me. I'm blessed that at this point, I don't know too many people that have had the virus. It hasn't directly impacted me in, any kind of a way where I haven't lost anyone or anything like that. But it's really, really hard going through something like this, right? For me, I would say the biggest impact it's had is that, honestly, it sort of makes me look in the grand scheme of things. If I had it all to do over again, did I make the right choice for myself? Like, can I still wake up every day and feel in the grand scheme content with the choices that I've made? And the answer is a resounding yes, thank God. Life is obviously complicated right now, and I think that COVID proves that it will always be that way. There's always going to be something that might be pulling at you in a direction you don't like, but again, grand scheme, looking at life as a whole, I'm very happy even dealing with everything that we're all having to deal with COVID. I can still say that I am living out as best I can the happiest version of what I want to do with my life.
Well, you got a lot of great advice for people to do just that in your book. And Katie, we're going to let you go back to your little girls, and we'll say thank you for joining us today. We appreciate it.
It is my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.